I remember the exact moment my brother laughed at me. It wasn't the kind of laugh that fills a room with warmth or shared amusement. It was light, careless. The kind of laugh that flicks a match across someone else's intentions and burns them without noticing. "It's only for the closest family," he said, waving a hand at the house I had bought for him. The 770,000. Mine, a gift meant to anchor him, to mark what I thought was a bond, and yet, in that second, I felt the weight of being outside a circle I had believed I belonged to. My parents stood beside him, smiling in a way that was almost imperceptibly smug. Their eyes skimmed over me, avoiding mine. I understood then that this wasn't about me being distant or indifferent, it was about control, and I had somehow, in their eyes, crossed an invisible line. I left that room with a quiet ache. Not the dramatic cinematic of betrayal, but the subtle, twisting kind that lodges in your chest and makes you notice every little oversight, every dismissive word, every slight I had previously excused. Walking out, I didn't cry or yell. I went home and sat with the idea, letting it turn over in my mind. The wedding was that weekend. I didn't get an invitation. No call. No text, no "we hope you can make it." Just silence. I stared at the unopened message on my phone, as if it could somehow explain the absurdity of being spliffing supposedly reserved for the closest family. For a day, I considered anger, imagined a confrontation where I would stand and expose every hypocrisy. But I realized that would have been reaction, not action. I wanted a different measure of control, one they couldn't easily dismiss or laugh off. I sold the house. It was not a dramatic sale. There was no immediate thrill, no burning sense of revenge. It was practical, calculated, and it gave me a sense of agency I hadn't felt in years. The paperwork was finished quietly, legally, and with full clarity that it was no longer mine, but mine to decide the terms of leaving. A decisive act. Without fanfare, the next day, the wedding took place. I imagined the flowers, the laughter, the toast speeches. I wasn't there. My absence was irrelevant. Or so they thought. They believed their circle was unbroken, their hierarchy unquestioned. But the moment came when the bride, bright-eyed and smiling, arrived at what she thought was her new home. The sight that greeted her was enough to stop her mid. A "for sale" sign leaned in the front yard. Papers neatly stacked by the mailbox. She scanned the house as if expecting a trick of the eye, a minor error. The silence that followed was electric. Not loud. Not accusatory, but heavy. She looked back at the brother she had married, eyes widening. The realization washed over him slowly, confusion, followed by a flicker of embarrassment, then the barest hint of anger. Not at me, not at the mechanics of the sale, but at the sudden exposure of a gap in his assumptions. I watched later, from a distance, as the social dynamics shifted in subtle ways. Whispers passed. The parents' smiles faltered, replaced by a sudden awareness that the hierarchy they had relied on was no longer absolute. The brothers' laughter, the very laughter that had dismissed me, now hung awkwardly between them, hollow. I did not gloat. I did not call, did not demand explanations. There was no dramatic confrontation, no vindictive spectacle. I simply reclaimed a space that had been denied to me, in the quietest, most controlled way possible. My victory was invisible to the world but unmistakable in its consequences. Sitting alone later, I thought about the nature of family, of closeness, of expectations. The gift had not been recognized, yet the removal of it was impossible to ignore. And in that quiet reckoning, I realized something else. I had regained something far more substantial than a house. I had regained dignity, agency, and a clear understanding that my worth could not be laughed away or restricted by arbitrary definitions of closeness. Life continued. The wedding photos circulated, the house became someone else's home, and my brother's smug certainty dimmed. We never discussed it, of course. Family rarely addresses the sharp edges of these moments. But in my mind, the act remained a quiet monument. Not a vengeance, but a self-respect. I had been excluded, dismissed, underestimated. And in the end, I had the last word, not broadcasted, but enacted with precision and calm. The silence of that house, the reaction of those who had presumed authority, spoke volumes. And I was finally at peace with being outside their circle. Because I understood I had never needed their validation to be whole.